2 members plus myself as for a quorum, 3. There's 1 member online. We have been trying to get the attention of that member, Dwight Sibley's, to no success. So,
I have been here, you know, but I have not heard. I don't know what happened. I'm just hearing you now. When the meeting was not called to order,
okay,
I wasn't hearing that thing.
all right.
So
thanks,
I don't know if it's part of the technical team.
Yeah, we didn't want to start unless we knew that you were engaged. All right, thank you. But again, it comes back to my original observation in having at least having to invite MDAs to the meeting and having to have them wait and not being able to have a timely start. It is, for me, it's a disrespect to those who we have invited, and we have just a bare minimum quorum to be able to start the meeting. So let me just start out by thanking the 3 members, Member Sibley's, who is online, Member Morrison and Member Jackson. We have apologies from Member Hamilton and Hannah. I have no more apologies from any other member.
Chair, apologies from Ms. Tamika Davis, who had, I think I've seen a record. She had communicated to me to apologize on her behalf. She's unavoidably absent.
Member Davis traveling, government business.
Right. I also am aware that when I spoke to, there was 2 other members that I spoke to, and I know that they are en route to get there. There has been some situation.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
All right. So, all right. Since we're here to review Heart Trust NTA. We started with them last week. They have been here from before 10 o'clock. It is now 10:41, and let us invite them in so we can get on with the business of the PAAC. All right. Thank you, Ambassador Meade. Dr. Ingleton. Let me apologize for the late start, but as I explained to you, we're just awaiting to have the quorum. We started off somewhat last week. You made your opening remarks and more. There were some questions that were asked. If you could have updated us on the labor shortage, the surveys of skill, enrollment rate, attrition, and on the community training intervention program and the changes to it, if any. So we could start out there. If there is any additional opening remarks that you have, you can make those opening remarks, and then we will open the floor to members to ask questions.
Thank you so much, Chairman and members. The team would have been introduced already, as you said, Chair, and we have come prepared to answer the additional questions that were raised and any additional matter which the committee may find useful. The only additional comment I'd add at this time is that we certainly strive in the ministry and supported by HEART in taking a very proactive approach based on the information available to us, based on our own studies of the environment, and also based on stakeholder feedback. And we value in particular the members who engage with constituents, who are the persons we really serve ultimately. And so we see your interaction as a key part of the stakeholder feedback for us. And we don't assume that any formal studies that we do are adequate. And so we really welcome the feedback. We would love to get additional feedback, whether in this forum or otherwise. And we can assure you that once we have that feedback, if we are not yet addressing the matter, we will seek to do so. And whatever we can't do by ourselves, we will do by way of partnerships. We have healthy partnerships with the Ministry of Education and other entities that, enable us to provide for the citizens of Jamaica skills, learning, and job opportunities as best we can. So please share with us all the thoughts you have in addition to the questions, all the suggestions, so that we can leave with a better understanding of what our citizens want. And as I said, we assure you that anything we can't respond to immediately, we will address at the earliest opportunity afterwards. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Ambassador. All right. Well, since I was the one who asked the question coming out of the last meeting, and I went back to your 2021-2022 annual report, and seeing we had a few days between, basically a week between, I did some more research, and I went back to the Auditor General's report of 2020 on skills training. And both are saying the similar thing, meaning your report and the Auditor General. So we've been seeing an increase in enrollment year over year, but the certification numbers have remained low. And you were here for the full meeting of the Ministry of Education. And reading the report gives me a similar thought, that we look at data, we make data, we put data out there, it looks good, but are we actually achieving what it is that the mandate of the agency itself? Yeah? So in your report, it speaks of 106% achievement, which is actually just 6% over your target. 87% achievement on certification, but you're actually about 44% really of certification. You had actually fallen below your target of 53,000, you did 46,000. Looking at the Auditor General's report, it went a lot into, are we actually achieving what it is that we are actually achieving? So you're spending out anywhere between $8 to $10 billion on an annual basis. If at this financial year, you're expected to spend approximately $10.53 billion on training costs, including subventions. Yeah? But if you're only certifying 45% of those who actually apply, what is causing the low certification of why spending that amount and achieving less than half of what you set out to achieve? Is the first question.
Thank you so much, Chairman, for that question. So what you have indicated in the Auditor General's report, as well as the Trust's annual report, these are issues that we have been looking at very carefully, and I am going to now provide you with a rationale for why we're seeing an enrollment rate that is significantly higher than an enrollment target or rate that is significantly higher than that of a certification. And then I'm going to be able to explain to you what we would have done since the Auditor General's report to change that. So there are two things at play here. Enrollment is not necessarily, or certification rather, is not necessarily a direct correlation of enrollment. So what we see as an enrollment rate vis-a-vis a certification rate does not necessarily reflect that if you enroll 10 persons in a given year, then the certification rate would reflect that. What I mean by that is, as soon as an individual is enrolled, that number is counted. For example, if we enroll an individual on the 1st of March, that individual is recorded as enrolled, but the certification is a process. So that individual may not complete the course within 30 days to be recorded as certified. So you'll find that we enroll throughout the year, but the programs have a particular duration, a particular life cycle. Some would end in 6 months, others in 9, others a year, and so on. And so it does not necessarily reflect it directly. So we have recognized that that has been a challenge in our reporting, and that is something that we have to change so that the true numbers can be reflected in any given year. So that's one explanation that we are now working on to delineate the numbers so that the exact enrollment is matching the certification. The next issue is that the
Before you move on there,
yes,
and I'm going to refer back to page 31 of your own report.
Yes.
Which speaks to, not that one, this is to their annual report. No, you won't have that. It spoke of average over a 10-year period.
Yes.
Your average total certification is basically 6%.
Yes. Yes.
So, I mean, over a 10-year period, that is low.
It is, and we have addressed that. And so, having addressed the issue with certification, there are two things that we did. The first thing is that we had challenges with certification from the level of the NCT vet in terms of the mechanism was not in place for 3 years in terms of a council. So that has been addressed. Our data to date speaks. 2020 to 2021, it was 53.4%, which is low. 2021 to 2022, it moved to 71%. 2022 to 2023, we are recording 82.61%. So the Heart Trust, since the Auditor General's report, would have recognized the challenges, recognized the shortcomings, would have do what we do in terms of pulling our team together and ensuring that we address the issues head on. And it was through that addressing of the issues and that assessment, our certification rate would have ballooned to 82.61% for 2022-2023. So we have cleared up the backlog at the level of the council with the new council in place where those issues were lagging to ensure that that was addressed, so that was done. And we have also done our own internal work to get our participants certified. In terms of attrition, Chairman, we would have recorded a 10% attrition.
Before you go to the attrition, let's
Yes.
just leave it. Because then your earlier explanation then why the low percentage would not stand, and if you are now telling me that you're increasing.
All right, so that's why I was explaining that it's twofold. The first one is the certification rate in isolation is low.
But I'm only going from your report. You know?
Yes.
So that means you're telling me that your report was giving false.
No. I'm saying the certification rate in isolation, which would have been recorded in the Auditor General's report and the Trust report of 2 years ago, certainly those rates are low. So we recognize what was causing that low certification rate itself in isolation. One was the backlog at the NCT vet level in terms of a council not being in place for a 3-year period. A 3-year period, a council, yes, not being in place for a 3-year period, which accounted for those low rates. In isolation, those were low. We would have cleared up that backlog as well as our own internal operations to ensure that individuals pass through our programs as best and seamlessly as possible. So that's the first variable. The second variable is that at any given time, an enrollment rate will be higher than a certification rate at any given time because they do not directly feed into each other in a given year span.
Chairman, I want some clarity in all of this. A lot been said, but I get lost in much of what you said, Edie, with all due respect. Reporting is one thing. What transpires in the training process by heart is the other thing, and that is the most important thing. Picking up on the comments by the chairman at the beginning about the enrollment level and the low certification level, and you said what has been fixed subsequently to the Auditor General's report. What I'm interested in knowing, for whatever period, 10-year period, or you dice out a segment of the period and use it as a reference, is it that it's mere reporting rather than it is of achievement that if you have 100,000 persons enroll, but you only have 40% certification. And yes, we accept that the level of certifying is not necessarily, more than likely, it's going to be less. When the number is huge, then it is of big significance. People are going to drop out. Circumstances come with the persons participating and they can't continue. Migration, all kind of factors can cause someone who was registered not to end up finishing the course to be certified. What I think would be more useful is information to explain why. Well, first, is the 42% certification real? That is only 42% of the entrants who got certified. That's one of the first questions to ask. Second question, if it is otherwise, what is it? Right? And if it is that persons have been trained but not certified, then we have to ask, how many are those who were actually trained, reached the level of certification but was not certified? 2, rather 3, for those who don't reach to the level of certification, what are the reasons, what caused it? Because you can't fix a problem unless you know what are the contributing causes to that problem. I want, and I think all of us would want to have a sense of that. It's not about reporting, because as the chairman said, quite frankly, pardon me, Mr. Chairman, I've been here long enough to hear many reports come in Parliament And when I go outside on the street, there is a disconnect between what I get reported from agencies and what. Oh, that's why I do my own little auditing by going into institutions and making inquiries of my own, because the real experience is what matters and not really what is put on paper and put in the parliament. And I've proven that many times over. So we want to, because our goal is to get more young people trained, and one of the problems I'm having with the responses I'm getting so far, ED, we, all of us as a country, emphasize, I do it personally to young people, emphasize the importance of certification. And if it is the case that people, young people, Chairman, is going through, but council not around and they don't get certified because a council not in place, that's a serious indictment. Because you have persons completed the required training modules, qualified for certification, and denied of a certificate that can give them value in the marketplace, that can give them the mobility in the workplace, and they can't or never got to because some internal run-ins within your organization, the ministry, or other related agencies of government cause that to happen. And bear in mind that we have been operating for a number of years now, if not in real reality, but at least conceptually, that we're running a joined-up government. It becomes the obligation of the lead agency to make sure that the commitment that we give to the young people, when you train and you satisfy the training requirement, you will get that visa, that passport that can cause you to take off, and some will say to become prosperous. That prospect of prosperity would have been thwarted by the internal failure of the government entities. So I want you to help us to get a sense of what really happens. And we're not asking you to highlight you to look bad. We want to find out what the problem is so it can be fixed so that we can achieve the goals that we all set. So if you could give us a sense of that.
Thank you so much, member. So I'm going to start with the question about, for those who do not reach the level of certification, what may have caused them to not get to that level? Having examined the Auditor General's report, having examined the Trust's annual report, we would have done our own assessment, our own internal assessment of what's happening with our participants to cause them not to complete a program. So we did the root cause analysis, and we recognize that there are quite a number of underlying factors which we are now addressing. So the first one is that we recognize that there are trainees who may not complete because of issues in terms of psychosocial support. Psychosocial support, they would have started a program and they would be coming to classes and then they stop coming to classes. We've done that assessment and recognized that there are certain factors within the space that's causing them not to come. And so, having looked at that, we have now put in what we refer to as a trainee support framework, a trainee support services framework. And that particular framework is one wherein we pull our trainees in various counseling sessions to ascertain exactly what may be happening in the home space. Having recognized that, we recognize that there are some of them that we have to pull out in that they can't be coming into a program from a home because of what may be happening in that space. So we may have to pull them out for residential training. Then there may be others who may be otherwise affected in terms of substance intake that cause them to just not complete the course. So we recognize too that we have to partner with the National Council on Drug Abuse to address those issues. There are other challenges that we would have encountered with our females, and having seen those, whether it be pregnancy, domestic violence, other issues that may be happening, we pull them out of their home space and provide them with residential training so that they can complete their course. Having put those measures in place, members and chairman, the trust can say that to date, the challenges that it had during the Auditor General's report, those do not exist at the magnitude as they existed prior. To date, we are recording 82.61, and remember, it is because we would have done the regionalization that was pre the Auditor General's report, where we put the various training institutions in regions, give them more direct oversight with parish managers, regional directors, recruitment officers, CDOs, we refer to them as career development officers who are directly interfacing. So we have taken a more hands-on approach with our trainees, recognizing the background, where they're coming from and the support they need. And it is because of that, Chairman, why it is that to date we are recording such a high rate of certification, which is a massive improvement over what we would have seen in 2020 at 53.4, 2021 at 71, and now we're at 2022, 2023, 82.61. So we have done the work to make the change. Yes.
Mike, please.
2% of certification that you have moved to?
Yes, yes, Chairman.
From the internal analysis that you said was done in heart,
yes.
Is the psychosocial factor, what percentage of it was caused by psychosocial issues? Can you remember that it said that there were a range of issues contributed, and one of them was psychosocial, and I want to have a sense of
it was
proportionally.
Proportionally, I would say, based on I don't have that data set with that specific number, but what I can say is that based on our internal discussions and what we would have seen from our assessment, when we look at the communities that are underserved and the ones that, when we looked at what was the rate coming out in terms of certification, we had to go in.
No, man, I don't want to focus on the underserved areas. I'm looking at those. You mentioned about this significant increase to 82%.
Yes, yes.
And I was interested in what was the cause between the high enrollment and the low certification.
Yes.
And you said that based following on the ages report and your own internal analysis, you found out that psychosocial challenges Now my specific question is, if there are a range of contributing factors to the low certification at the end, what were those contributing factors? Psychosocial you mentioned. I want to get a sense of
the others?
The range.
The range.
Not necessarily infinite amount.
Okay. So
because I don't want to get anecdotal.
No, and it's not anecdotal. These are real challenges. So we would have had psychosocial challenges. We would have had access challenges. We would have had individuals with transportation challenges. We have had individuals who choose to stop in the middle of a training and take on work.
All right. You might not have the data, but I would love, given that you did a study, I'm finishing now. Given that you did a study, if you could just give us the result of the breakdown of the contributing factors,
for sure,
that would be useful.
That would be good, yes. And we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Ingleton and team, good morning. 82.61% of certification. This is significant when we consider the backdrop of the report. And the reportage, what I appreciate is that we are now able to unpack and dissect what this is saying to us and what the numbers are really saying to us. I only have 4 questions. 1, what percent would you say, and I'm dovetailing on the question asked by Member Jackson, would have reached the level of certification but not certified? And what would be the reason? Right? Why would a student reach the level of certification and they are not certified? That's 1. 2, what remains your most significant challenge in executing your programs? 3, are there entities that are unregulated, offering or promising HEART certification? And what are the systems that are being put in place on clamping down on this? Because from time to time, constituents will say to me that, you know, they went and they did a HEART training program at this school, and they are unable to get the certificate. And I am wondering how many of them are really having a partnership with HEART, or they are in a position so to do to offer HEART certification. So, well, it could very well be a scam, and what systems are being put in place. And my 4th question is, as a member of parliament from a rural constituency, how will we make better use of the rural spaces, primary schools, and especially since Dr. Ingleton, you have raised the matter of access. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Member Morrison. So I'm going to, the first one was, what percent would you say have reached the level of certification and not certified? And what would have accounted for that? So having reached the level of certification would indicate that you have completed all the courses, everything, but you do not have that certificate in your hand. So theoretically, you're certified in terms of having completed all the courses, but the actual document is not in your hands. And I will answer why. And that is an issue that, though the trust has to exert its influence, it does not have the span of control over. We do not issue certificates. So why don't we issue certificates? Because there's what I would refer to as a separation of powers. So we train, we certify, but then there's another body that does the ratification and verification, the actual issuance. So that body is the council is the National Council for Technical Vocation, Education and Training. So whilst as the head of entity, we can exert our influence, we cannot demand, because the entity has a separate reporting body in that it has a council. So in terms of the actual issuing, it is important that we really dissect it as it is. So we would train, we train, we certify in terms of the completion of the theoretical data, but the actual issuing. So you would see where individuals are saying, I would have completed a training at HEART and I didn't get my cert. And they call HEART. And when they call HEART, we reach out to the NCT vet. They would not know that the actual issuance is a separate body, but that is something that is real, that the trust would not have total control over. But some things have been done. Some things have been done, and that has to be highlighted. The backlog over the years, the NCT vet is actively clearing that backlog. We would have met with the Ministry of Education and would have expressed that challenge as well most recently. And they have committed to working to ensure that all of those backlogs are cleared. And so we have that commitment and collaboration with the ministry. And so more and more, we're getting less complaints of individuals having the actual document in their hand.
But Dr. Ingleton, before you go further, I'm a bit taken back and
Chair,
confused.
I have my hand up for quite
You see what happens when you don't come to the actual meeting, but yes, you are next.
Chair, you have to understand that we are in 2023, yes, Chair, and we have to operate.
I have not recognized you. Member, I have not recognized you. So
we have to operate as if we are in 2023, Chairman. And I am at the meeting.
Yes, Dr. Ingleton, as I was saying before. In that 3 years that we speak about, that there was no certification. I mean, I remember meetings that we have had here at the PAAC, because back then, the NCT vet was under the control somewhat, because it was the financing basically came through Heart Trust. Right. There was an issue of where it should be housed, if it was Heart, if it was Ministry of Education, and it took years. That we can't blame on NCT vet, but we have to blame on government policy moving slowly on where it should be housed. But you speak about 82% certification, and if it's one thing that I have a weakness of is throwing away documents. And I go back to the public bodies for financial year 2023-2024. Not that you can't exceed what it is that you had set out to, but I want to know exactly what is it, coming back to the members' questions, what is it that you did differently? Because in the public bodies for this financial year, you speak about an enrollment program of 128,000 with a 53,969 obtaining certificate, which is about 43% of what your enrollment is going to be. Yeah? You started out by saying that enrollment is not necessarily certification, but you have now given us numbers which we applaud, of 82%, coming down from a low of 45% 2 years ago. What have you done differently, yeah, that you are now achieving that? Because if in last financial year, members, follow me, you said that you achieved a 72% or a 74% certification, then why would in this financial year public bodies you put a 43% certification expectation?
Okay, so thanks again, member. So let me see how best I can break this down. The Auditor General's report is about 2 to 3 years in the back.
And this is not Auditor General's report. As I said, this is public bodies for this year.
What is the data set that you're referring to there? Because I'm...
Summary of operation plans.
Right, so, yes.
Right, which is the public bodies, which is the budget book that comes to Parliament. And this comes from Heart. It states in your summary operational plan, Heart NSTA will seek to increase enrollment in its programs to 128,255 trainees, with 53,969 obtaining certification within the 23-24 financial year.
Yes.
And I'm just asking the question, you just stated to us that in the last financial year, you brought certification up to 74%.
71%.
Then why is it then, would you then bring back your certification down to 54% and now reporting that you are up to about 81%? Because this is a public bodies that is given to us here in Parliament for a budget that has been passed with an expenditure of $10 billion for training.
Okay, all right. So member, Chairman, the certification rate that we are now enjoying of 82.61%, you're asking me what did we do differently?
Or is that with the backlog that you have?
So there are a lot of things that we did differently. And that would include the backlog, but it is not the singular model. It's not the singular method that we use to raise the bar. Mm-hmm. I spoke prior of regionalization. Prior to the Auditor General's report, we did not have a regional structure where different communities would get direct intervention. We have changed our operational structure totally to be one of regionalization. That gave regional directors, parish managers, career development officers a hands-on, one-on-one experience with trainees in the various constituencies. That boosted our certification rate. We moved, remember, you asked me for the different things, to psychosocial support. We also provided our trainees with financial support.
Unfortunately, I'm going to stop you.
Okay.
No, and the reason being, I wanted to show this to turn on your mic. Go ahead. Go ahead. Why you turn it off? Go.
Right. I think you might not understanding what the chairman. But the chairman, my understanding of what the chairman is saying is that, given the fact that you have a report in terms of the financial statement, where you mention in that you have a projection of 52%. Why would you have given that as a projection when up to that point you were at 71?
You were at 71, exactly.
Right. I think that is
Yeah.
what the chairman is trying to dig down on. Because you were at 71, why would you have gone back
to 50,
with a projection
to 43%?
of 50%?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand you very clearly, Mr. Chairman.
But this is a statement from Heart Trust, NTA, that came in the public bodies of stating a 43% somewhat certification, while in the previous financial year, Heart is now saying that they had a 71% certification. So why in this current financial year you have gone back to a 42 or 43%, right? So Dr. Ingleton, I'm not trying to make it seem we are not achieving anything, right? But are trying to delve down in it. Is it that the increase in certification is one coming from the backlog, right? Then if that is so, then I would ask the question, what percentage in that financial year would be backlog certification? Because then I would reduce that from the current certification of the current year. Because backlog meaning that they would have done the course some time ago.
That's correct. Right.
Yeah?
Yes.
So
yes.
I would want to take it out of the current or the last financial year, right? Then now, in operational adjustments, what are the certifications that we are now speaking about?
Okay.
Because at first you said there's not really a correlation
No.
between you recruitment and certification. So my next question will be, what are the time frames for each of your courses? So what percentage of the courses fall within a 1 year application, a 6 months, within that financial year? Which ones are 2-year courses? So we can get a better understanding of analyzing the certification. Because if we do get the increase in certification, that is A+. Because then I want to then tie it back to the labor shortages that we're talking about and certification, and how it is that we tie it back into the type of jobs that the labor force survey said that we actually need to certify individuals to see what we're.
Okay, Chairman, thank you so much. I have absolutely no challenge with what is here. Mm-hmm. This data is actually taken from our corporate plan 2023-2024. So this is not a challenge. What I need to explain is that every single year we increase our target by at least 10%. So it is not that we're going back. You're seeing a 53,969 here that you would have indicated is 42%. And we would have a 71% in 2021, and it's like we're going back. So that's not what's happening there. So our target for certification, which would have nothing to do with certificates, with certification in the back, would have been improving. So when we record here 53,969 obtaining certification for 2023-2024, that would have been a target that would have been much lower in terms of our target for 2022-2023. So what we have recorded here in our operational plan is an increase in our efforts to have more certification coming out of the organization. So I totally understand what's creating the challenge here and why it seems a little bit confusing, because the 82.61% is not necessarily certification in a given clean year.
But that is what we're trying to determine.
That's what I'm
Dr.
saying.
Ingleton, let me tell you, as Member Jackson said, I've been here long enough to hear numbers. Because the truth be told is, if I am to look at your annual report for 2021-22, and I see 106% achievement, I would think that is 106% over your target, but it's actually only 6%. So numbers can give you what you want to know. Yes. So what we want, so that's why I'm coming back. I don't get excited about the 80-odd%. Right? Because that's why I said we want to disaggregate what is it that you actually doing in that year from the cohort that has applied for that particular year.
Okay. Yes, and
you get me?
That is
so
perfectly
that 54,
clear.
That figure there in the financial statement can be correct for that particular financial year.
That is correct,
and it would have been an increase in over the year before. But to give me 82%, yes,
and I understand that, Chairman.
Good.
So we would have done several things. There was the backlog cleanup, because we do understand.
Start out
we
by
value
telling me how many of that 82% is back.
Is backlog.
That's what I want.
Right.
So give me now, what is your target, or what did you make last year, since we can look at last year? That last year was completed, of actual individuals who applied and completed certification within
that given year. Okay. So that is data. That's throughput data. So that is data, Chairman. That's throughput data that I can extract and get that to you. So that would be clean in terms of that cohort for that enrolled in that year and completed in that year.
Because that's the only way I'm going to know if you're meeting your targets.
And that is correct.
But jumbling up everything in one and giving me a number, because again, Dr. Ingleton, I come back to your report.
Right.
Where over that 10-year period, and yes, 3 out of the 10 years, we had the issue of issuing certification.
Right. Yes.
But we're talking about a 6% average certification. And when I look at the spend that Hart is doing on certification, it's a huge spend for such a small return. Because really what we want to do is look at the rate of return on investment. And I tell you, I am happy that you are looking at the Auditor General's report and making the adjustments.
Yes, we are doing
because we want to talk about the community intervention, which is dealt with in this.
Yes.
So if we can get that figure,
we can.
Year over year.
Year over year, we can.
And I'm a little disappointed you never walk with that, but you walk with the
no,
big
I'm
figure
sure
now.
my team has it. They'll forward it to me anytime now.
Before you go, let me just ask Member Sibley's to ask his question. Is he still online? Yeah? Member.
Yeah, that's a quick comment, not extensive one. On the reporting, it might seem like nitpicking, ED, but I don't like the bling thing. And the reporting look like it's a bling thing. The numbers just look good, but when you dig deep in it, carry you all over the place, right? And one of the things I learned from young people, when you tell them something and you don't deliver on it, you promise them, they become distrustful of all of us. So we must be frank and not get into this reporting that make things look glorious. And when you dig deep, sometimes it has pus in there. So I just want to caution you. about not going down that road. I've seen too much of it, and it doesn't look good.
Okay, thanks so much for that.
Just another question. I know you have different levels of certification. So you have level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. And that would be determined by the amount of time, that the duration of the course. So how would that impact your year-to-year reporting? Because you might have 1,000, maybe half of your cohort would have been on a 4-year course. So they would not have been certified till after 4 years of training. And you have to do a yearly report. How would that impact the yearly report? And the second question is your linkages after certification. What kind of linkages are there in terms of these persons who would have been certified, linking them to the job market?
Okay, so let me go with the first one. You indicated that how do we deal with the short-term programs? So you'd have individuals who would, a short-term program is a program that would not, that would be less than 6 months in duration. Those are the ones we refer to as short-term. So your question was, how is it that we deal with certification in the short-term programs? Right, and that is why I started out by saying that given the length of a program, in a reporting year, you may not necessarily be reporting enrollment as opposed to certification. So they're really distinct, given the fact that the trust operates programs across varying lengths. So you have a program that's 6 months, then there are those that are 9, then there are those that are 18. And so you'd have to be capturing specifically when an individual enrolls and match that to a certification in a particular time and break that down in distinct figures to really see what's happening. But what I wanted to say, though, Chairman, we refer to what we call throughput rate. And throughput rate would mean that in a particular year when an individual enrolls and completes within that particular time frame. And we would have noticed that for the throughput for 2018-2019, that was 41%, very low, which we would have admitted. We recognize as well 2019 to 2020, 42%. The 2019 to 2020, 42. The COVID year, 2020 to 2021, 53, 2021 to 2022, 71, 2022 to 2023, 83. These are pure figures. These are 2022 to 2023. These are pure figures. These are throughput figures. What we're saying, Chair and members, is that there, 83. What we're saying, Chairman, is that there was a time in the past when there was a challenge with certification. The AG's report is data enough to demonstrate that. The trust, having recognized that, did not sit down. It changed course. It did things. It worked on its internal processes. It worked on its operations. It regionalized its structure. It provided financial support. It went into communities and offered hands-on, hand-holding experiences to our students to really change that. So what I can say is that to date, the challenges of the past are not what they are today. We would have recorded significant changes in the trust since 2018, 2019, when those issues came to the public. We have made those changes.
There were two questions.
Yes, there were two.
The one that deals with post-certification and the linkages into the job market for these certified personnel.
Okay, so how is it that we place, how do we place them? So the trust partners with industry across all its programs. We work with industry, ascertain their needs. We go in, we do skills in demand survey, communicate with our industry leaders for them to ascertain to us, to let us know what are the skill sets that they need, what are the different things that they're looking for. Based on those surveys and those engagements, we place our participants in various places of work. So we have job placement managers across the various parishes, members who work with the participants to ascertain where could they be best placed, not only for their technical competencies, but also their employability skills, because we put a lot of work in that as well, in terms of working with them on their professionalism, deportment, the quorum, time management, and how you deal with difficult conversations or a difficult boss, so that when they go into the place of work, they can be work ready. So we also do what we refer to as trainee startup. So you may have completed a course, but you may want to go into entrepreneurship. And so we provide you with financial support as a starter to get into that. We also, I indicated prior that we have job placement officers who work alongside the trainees to get them into the very best places. So I could say to you that right now, that in terms of our placements, we would have placed individuals across various firms in Jamaica, and I can list a few of them. We have a lot of them down by in the Western Belt in terms of the hotels. The hospitality industry would take up a lot of them. So we have quite a number of them in the Sandals, Ocherios, in Royalton, White Sands, Coral Springs. Ministry of Labor would have taken up quite a number of them. The electoral officers would have absorbed 92 of our trainees. We have individuals across the various BPOs. We have individuals in the Ministry of Education, the Department of Correctional Services, and I indicated before, the Southern Regional Health Authorities. Okay. So year to date, we would have placed, and that is in terms of our direct work, because other individuals get jobs without the support of HEART in terms of their own networking. But we would have personally placed 5,690 individuals from April 1, from April 1, 2023 to date, to September 30.
And that will be what percentage of your output in terms of certification?
No, well, it wouldn't reflect directly. We would have placed 5,690. It doesn't mean that that's what has been certified.
No.
Because we have those who would migrate. We have those who choose to go on to higher education. We have those who choose to go into entrepreneurship. And we have those who choose to go in employment. So that data set for employment, we actively work on ensuring that our participants are placed. If they come to us, they can't find a job, we reach out to industry to get them a job.
Including the public sector?
Including,
as
yes.
You mentioned.
The OPM would have absorbed 92 of them. The Ministry of Education would have absorbed 31. The Department of Correctional Services would have taken on quite a number as well. The Southern Regional Health Authorities, that's the Ministry of Health, would have taken on a number of our participants, and that is central government. The private sector, they want our trainees, right. So we find that there's uptake there. Yes, they come to us, and we also go to them with our skills in demand survey. So they approach us, individuals who actively recruit HEART graduates, approach the trust for graduates, and we place them.
Member, can you turn off your mic, please?
Small businesses too. And as I indicated, members, some of them don't want to necessarily work, they want to start a business. We help them. So we provide them with the funding to start up. We take them through the business plan, the business model, how they market their business, and we monitor them throughout. And there are some success stories of those who would have so started.
Now, member, we have an order first. Member Morris.
Very useful information, Dr. Ingleton, because we were just discussing linkages, right? And that's a key word, right? How we are able to have, like, for example, a person from Portmore being connected to services in Montego Bay and Ocherios, right? So it's not as though we are only preparing persons within a particular parish or within a particular space. Maybe at a later discussion we can discuss HEART within the Caribbean, maybe beyond our waters where we get our students, the certification is effective and it carries through.
It is
right?
portable. It's really, the certificate is portable, it's mobile.
Yes.
So we do find that the Caribbean countries really take up heart graduates.
And therefore, this is something that we need to put out there. This is a bestseller in the argument that, you know, when you go into a community, you can say to a youth that this is able to transport you exactly to where you want to go. Very useful, very valuable. But Dr. Ingleton, I want to go back to my first concern regarding certification, getting that certificate, the piece of paper in their hand. How are we going to iron out the kinks with the council? What is the timeline for issuance of these certificates? And what is it then, having completed, what is it that HEART gives them? So do we have individuals whom, having completed, for 3 to 6 months, they are unable to get a job because they don't have the certificate? What is it that HEART hands the student? One, if at all, anything. And two, since HEART is large and in charge, you are out there, you are recruiting heavy numbers.
Yes.
What is the relationship, what is the discussion that you are going to enter into with the council for issuing the certificate? Because this is going to undermine, this is going to compromise your program.
That is correct.
If this isn't sorted.
Thank you so much. So for the first question, in waiting for the certificate, what do we do? What do we give them so that an employer can recognize them as competent? So we give them a statement of competence, and that is signed at the level of the trust, regional director's level, where we pull the data in terms of the courses that they would have done and the credits that they would have received, and we write for them a statement of competence. So that is used, members, in lieu of the certificate. So the industry employer would know that you do not yet have the certificate in hand, but this document that is legitimate coming from the trust is a demonstration. And then we do the work with the NCT vet to get that actual certificate document out. So that is the waiting. We have, given the digital age and digital transformation, we have started to issue as well digital certificates. So certainly we are now teaching and going through Jamaica, talking a lot about digital transformation. So there's a lot of work in that regard, because there are some employers who still want the paper certificate. So we have to be educating, letting them know that the digital certificate is just as valuable. It has the same credit, it has the same weighting, and so we're doing that work as we go along. We also issue badges to individuals as a demonstration of completion and of their competence. Member, you asked, what remains your most significant challenge in executing programs? What remains our most significant challenge is getting our trainees to have a mindset of work. So we will find that we will go out and we're in the recruitment field, and they will tell us that I get a certificate at heart, but I can make more money doing other things. So we would have had to be doing a lot of counseling to help them to understand that that is not the better route to go. It's not a sustainable route. The certification is a more sustainable route in terms of saving your lives at the end of the day. So we take them through that, because they'll tell you, yes, I get a certificate, but I can get more money doing other things. So we have to get them to understand that work is sustainable. Every other avenue may not be. And it is that sort of counseling that we take them through. We also introduce them, because we find that the demonstration of a live person who would have gone through heart and is doing well helps. And so we talk to them about individuals such as a Chef Lumley, who is doing excellent across Jamaica in his business, having started at heart, and other individuals who would have gone through.
And a former constituent of mine.
Yes, yes, and Mr. Donald Foster in the construction industry who would have moved from the streets to the boardroom, really earning and employing people. So when they see those individuals, they recognize that I can get to a very high level by taking this more productive route than any other route. We also find that in our communities that are underserved, we have to pull out. Residential training has to become a staple because we have to pull them out of the community so that they do not have that influence, so they can focus on getting a certificate and becoming work ready, and then place them in a job outside of that community to totally reculture them and reorient them from a lifestyle that they would have been used to before. So we really do a lot of hand-holding. We work a lot with the National Council on Drug Abuse because we realize that they go into withdrawal when they're not able to take the substance. And so they pull out residential training where we have our eyes on them for 24 hours. That helps them a lot. And that's where we have most of our success stories.
Yes. A bit of follow-up on member Morrison's question about those persons who've completed the training and who never receive or still yet to receive their certificates. One, do you have a number, how many students we're talking about? Do you have that available?
Yes, we could shore up that number for sure, member.
You don't have it here now?
My team would, as you asked, would be.
So, okay, so that is one. Two, that statement of explanation.
Statement of competence.
Statement of competence. My question is there an explanation? Because it sounds good. You know, Chairman, when we have the land transfer issue and the government issue letters of possession in lieu of a title because of the process, many of them have a letter, says letter of possession, but they can't do not much with it. They can't borrow on it, they can't do this on it, they can't do anything. So when you tell me about the letter of the statement, it reminds me of that. With that statement, do you say on it, or with some attachment for a potential employer, student John Brown, holder of the statement, has completed all the requirements for issuance of a certificate, and in effect, this is an interim piece of paper that they can use? Because it sounds good, ED, when you say about the statement and it give all the courses and what that they finish in there. The typical employer out there don't know what that translates. The only thing they know, you're certified or not. Okay. And they look for the certificate.
Yes,
and it's either there or not there.
Yes. So our statement of competence is a little bit more detailed than that. It is accompanied by a status letter. And the status letter indicates that to complete this course, to complete this particular program, you would have needed to do 8 courses at X number of credits. Please be advised.
I hear
yes, so that is what it does.
I hear you on all of that.
It indicates
somebody
it very clearly.
who's familiar with a transcript from a university or a high school will know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes.
The reason why you have certifying bodies, them say you work out all the details of what make that person competent. We just want a statement from you that yes, the person is competent in this area or the other. So yes, your statement give all these explanations. Does it say explicitly, John Brown has completed everything, qualifying him to obtain a certificate of competence? And you put in a little smaller print below, this is an interim issuance,
yes,
the paper.
Yes, Member
because
Jackson.
it was your internal failure. When I say you government, right? Why the student don't have the certificate in his hand? He went to classes and training things and do everything that we tell him to do. And you fail to give him the certificate that he can go show off with his family, say, yes, me get certificate and bring to employee. You fail to do that. So my question specifically, is that statement as explicit as that?
Yes,
so that
member.
any potential employer out there know what it is?
Yes, member.
And the answer is yes.
It is. Okay. The answer is yes.
All right, good. Satisfied with that. Next question now, Madam Edie. the council that was derelict in its duty to cause these persons my colleague mentioned to have suffered these months and years having completed a program and no certificate. The composition of that council is still the same now as it was then?
No, what happened at the time, the council was not in place. So it's not a case where the council was in place but did not do its work.
We will encounter that in another life. Yeah.
The council was not in place. So it's not a case where individuals were derelict. It is just that the body was not constituted.
So is that true miracle where that happened? Or who failed to have that council? Where was that failure? Is that a miracle why the council was not there? Why that council was not there? We want reasons so we can know to avoid them in the future.
Well, Minister,
I'm going to protect Dr.
member
Ingleton because
would
it
not
was before her time.
It was before my time, so
So I know
it
file, nothing in the file to tell you what was the cause of that.
predates me, Minister.
You think that the PS might have that file? So I should ask the PS that question then, Madam.
Go ahead, PS, it's all yours.
So I will join in trying to protect the MD on that. I don't think that would be...
No,
within
PS,
our
with all due respect, she don't need any protection. She go
Well,
and do job protecting herself.
No. But remember, we know it would not have been up to her.
It preceded her.
Exactly. And what I can say, though, is that since we have been on board, we have actually had meetings with the council, although they have moved to another ministry, because we have an interest in the certification, because as you know, some of our citizens don't quite make that distinction between the delivery body and the certifying body. So HART's name is still being called, and they come under the OPM. We actually had an engagement very recently with the Ministry of Education and the council to try to assist them in getting on top of the challenges. And we can say that we're going to make better progress.
So the council is now under the Ministry of Education.
Finally.
Yes.
And the Ministry of Education is under the Office of the Prime Minister.
The Ministry of Education?
All
under
ministries fall under the Prime Minister.
No.
I am not so...
No, he knows what I'm talking about.
I think, let me help you though, member. PS, it has been an issue because the PS herself, the MD used that 3 years of gestation as one of the reasons for the low numbers of certification. The NCT vet had fallen under the umbrella of the Heart Trust, which is OPM at one stage, without a council. So the members' question really is, why was there not a council, seeing that there was some marriage between OPM, NCT vet, and Heart? Because for years we keep coming back here asking the question why. It took nearly 2 to 3 years because Hart was saying that it was Ministry of Education. Ministry of Education said it was Hart. So we can't then push it on those who did what we asked them to in doing the training for certification. And it is just like with us as members of parliament when they ask us to fix a road. They don't care where you get it from. They want to know that as members of parliament, we do as what is required of us. Now that it has a home, because it was out there in La La Land at some point. It has a home. One of the questions is, how are we treating with the backlog? Even though they have that letter from Hart. But how is it that you're treating with the backlog with issuance of those backlog of certifications? Because we have had PAC meetings here, especially to do with your off-site locations, not the ones that are hot, but your community intervention locations, of persons going through, completing, and not being able to receive that certification. So it would be good over that 3-year period when there was no certification to also get that number, Dr. Ingleton, on the other requests that we have made. How is that backlog being treated?
Thank you for that, but I'll come back to complete my question.
Go ahead.
Chair, may I respond?
Sure.
Yes. So, for some clarification, while the heart has always been our trust under the OPM, and while there's a relationship between NCTVET and heart, there was always a relationship between NCTVET from a certifying perspective and the Ministry of Education. It is one of the reasons why the decisions was taken a few years ago to make it more transparent what the reporting relationships are. And so maybe if you have an opportunity to speak with the Ministry of Education, again, some further clarification can be provided. But the input I wanted to offer is that having come into the ministry and realized the challenge, and I wanted to take some responsibility for the final output, because we are not comforted in saying we only deliver the training and certification is not our business. And so that's the reason I mentioned that we actually got involved in the discussion and we're seeking to take it forward. The MD already indicated that significant work was done since the council was established and working with HEART's guidance and input in treating with a lot of the backlog. And so since then, just a couple weeks ago, we had meetings where we're also seeking to be even more efficient. We are not removing ourselves from the responsibility to have trainees that have not just knowledge, but the certification and everything they need. Whatever component of it is not strictly within the OPM or HEART, we are working with the other responsible entities so that we can deliver it. So we are indicating as a matter of fact where the various responsibilities lie, but we are not removing ourselves from a part of the responsibility to assist in ensuring that we serve the citizens completely.
I do appreciate that. But, Dr. Mead, there's a thought in my own mind. When the universities, UTech, UWI, Northern Caribbean University, issues a certificate at the end of a program, right? They don't rely upon the university council to issue the certificate. University council certifies the universities as being competent to train and certify. And so at the end of a training program, the universities issue a certificate. Why is it so different that if HEART is a certified body, if it is, to train persons, why don't they have a similar kind of certifying authority as any other of the institutions like I made mention of? And I would believe that the council, like the university council, would ensure that the programs being administered by the institution is in keeping with the standards that are signed off on. But just a thought, why is it that it is different? And why is it that we don't sort of parallel that which seems to work without any problem?
Yes, member, thank you. So there are different perspectives on how it should ideally be done. Even in the discussions we had recently, there was the view that there should be a separation between delivery and certification. The point you made about the relationship of the UCJ has to do with accreditation. So the UCJ will accredit an institution and then they can deliver programs. You have some institutions that don't have that accreditation and they have to issue certificates under the auspices of an accredited entity.
Institution.
We are still in transition in how we do business, and as I said, it's not everyone agrees on the perspective on whether an organization that establishes standards should also verify and monitor those standards or issue their own certificates. If you look at the secondary school system, you see that the way we deliver our programs is that the secondary schools will train, bring persons to a standard, but they do exams that are monitored by another body, in fact, an external body that will issue those certificates. So
but with all respect, though, I don't think it's quite the same, because each high school, use the high school as an example, the CXC is separate from a school leaving certificate. There are two certificates a student gets.
And remember, it goes back to the point you yourself raised earlier. When you made a distinction between the value of a transcript and the value of a certificate, we agree that universities also issue transcripts as well as certificates. Now, you will find that depending on who wants to engage the graduate, different value is placed. So if you're going to another institution, for example, they actually put more value on the transcript because they want to see exactly how you performed
in the courses.
While an employer might be more interested in the certificate. So again, some persons who engage graduates from high schools would be interested in their CXC certificate, irrespective of what the school leaving certificate will say.
Yes.
There may be a tertiary institution that's going to engage that secondary school graduate who is more interested in seeing the detailed school leaver certificate. So remember, if we could agree, there are different types of certification and documentation that, depending on what you're going on to next, may be of different value. I wouldn't say it's one or the other, member. And as I said, there are different perspectives on whether one institution should control the entirety from recruiting to delivery to certification to standards versus whether it should be separated. It's a debate that continues.
That debate can't go on forever, though, Dr. Mead.
I agree.
Because the young people get caught in the middle.
I agree.
And all they want is
what
to
I
move on
shared
with
with you
their lives.
earlier is that when we engaged the Ministry of Education recently, we sought to find a mechanism for operationalizing the existing status quo to ensure that the graduates are not disenfranchised. And we are working with the mechanism as best we can.
My closing recommendation on that, yes, is that we set some timeline.
Okay.
We set some timeline to bring that debate to a close. We can't make perfection be the enemy of good or good the enemy of perfection. Let us come to some conclusion. We can review it as we go forward and make subsequent adjustment, but we must bring more certainty into the whole process of certification
But
for the
members,
persons who enter the
before
programs.
Member Morrison, and I want to just on that, because heart itself compared to the other educational institution, Member Jackson. Member Jackson? Because even in your own report, you talk about the community training interventions. And I mean, from looking at the Auditor General report in 2020, they had 142 such. So it makes it much harder because it makes more monitoring on your side and having to certify those other institutions which acts on behalf of HEART. Because so HEART has X amount of institutions that they run. But then there are courses that are certified by HEART that are run by close to another 150 institutions. Yeah? So there would have to be some certification of these institutions, just as we do basic schools, as we do primary schools.
It comes back to the point
The
that
question
Member
that I
Morrison
asked.
was asking. I was under the impression that these quote-unquote satellite training community institutions were doing the programs on behalf of HEART. So they would be under the supervision of HEART.
Well, you remember
It's
some time ago.
It's like a contractor
No,
kind
remember
of
some
arrangement.
time ago, member, because, and it is something that I want us to look at, because HEART spends about $3 billion on these, in subvention to these training institutions, which is a large amount. And I remember a few years ago, Dr. Mead, where we had a discussion at the PAAC, and I think it was one that was doing tourism in Montego Bay, Western hospitality, and the issues that arose with that institution in getting subvention but not meeting its target. And it is the same concern that the Auditor General report have spoken on in meeting that target with such a large subvention to these institutions. So that in itself is another discussion to be had in what has changed since this Auditor General report to ensure that we get value for money for those community training intervention programs.
Thank you so much for that.
But before you go, because I think Member Morrison, and then you can just answer all questions.
No, it was, I just wanted to go back to my question about those entities that
Yes,
may
okay,
be
back to the same.
unregulated.
All right.
Yes.
So I'm going to respond to the community training interventions first, and then I'm going to respond to the unregulated. You asked about unregulated entities. So you have a very good idea of the model, Chairman, that the trust approves and provides subventions to these partnering entities. We refer to them as community training interventions. So that subvention is issued on a quarterly basis, and it's issued to defray costs associated with staff cost, utility, equipment maintenance, administrative costs, and perhaps traveling costs for staff members. So that's what we do. We provide a subvention. Having recognized that there have been significant gaps in these community training interventions, since the Auditor General's report, we have done some work. So we have increased staffing within the organization to provide more quality assurance or monitoring of these community training interventions. So they now receive additional support from a parish manager and from a regional director that is directly assigned to them. So we also would have enhanced our monitoring and reporting and support mechanisms. So CTI officers focus on day-to-day implementation. So we now have in the trust community training intervention officers. Those did not exist before. So given the number of community training interventions across the island, we had to put in that staffing within the organization to provide oversight, help them with decision-making, improvements, monitoring what it is that the students are learning, and provide a direct report to the trust. We didn't stay there. We went to capacity building. So we would have worked with their staff members in numerous workshops to ensure that they had the requisite skills and competencies to be delivering on the different training interventions that they're delivering on. And we undergo ongoing needs assessment in these CTIs to ensure that they're functioning at the highest level. So those are some of the interventions we would have made since the Auditor General's report, and we're finding that increasingly there is more and more compliance. In terms of the unregulated entities, Member Morrison, there are private providers who have arrangements with NCT Vet to train and certify individuals across Jamaica. So the NCT Vet is responsible for accrediting them. With the movement of the NCT Vet to MOE and some movement of the functions, it is now the UCJ who would have the responsibility for accrediting them. So they're called ATOs, authorized training organizations. But we do, Member Morrison, get reports of fraudulent activities. We get them every now and then that there'll be a post on social media that this particular person or agency is offering a training. When we do our checks, we realize that it's fraudulent. What we do with that, we report internally to our legal counsel, and we report externally to the police. What the NCT Vet does too to combat that, it publishes a list on its website of all of the approved authorized training organizations. So anybody can go on to see if this particular one that popped up on social media is part of that approved listing. So we do that to
So how many external training providers you have?
we have, in terms of this, the CTIs,
Yes.
we have approximately 80, and more or less about 80 to 85 CTIs currently in operation that we provide subventions to operate.
About 85.
Yes, 80 to
And
85.
what had happened to the others? I mean, in the Auditor General report, it spoke about 142.
Some of them were rationalized, because we'd find that there'd be several operating within one defined area with not enough participants in a particular given course, and so we would have rationalized. Some of them would have come together.
So the rationalization has taken
care of the 100 and that we had prior.
And there's your certification within those CTIs. What's the rate of certification? And I go back to the Auditor General report of concern of completion of courses and certification within the CTIs had a low rate, about 30-odd%.
I'm just finding that data for you, Chairman. So my team will pull that up quickly in terms of the certification rate across CTIs. Yes.
And coming, I want to just touch also on the where's my notes? Your training. In your rationalization program, you use data from the skills survey and what is needed within the economy at any given time. Yeah? How is it that your programs are aligned to that survey that is done, and how are we meeting the needs of what the Statin survey or yourself, because I think HEART does its own survey also.
Yes.
How is it that it is aligned?
So let me give you the certification rate for the CTIs.
Sure, please.
Okay. So our community training intervention, I can go back to 2020, 2021. We had a certification target 2020 of 2,693, and we exceeded that to 3,199. So that was 119%. For 2021,
of how many persons who?
Okay.
If you can give me in relation to how many persons within that attended.
Yes, I can give you that.
Compared to the certification.
Right. So 5,818 would have been enrolled. And of that 5,818 in 2020 COVID year, we certified 2,693. For 2021, we would have enrolled a higher number of 7,898, and we certified in that year the actuals, yes. We enrolled 7,898, thank you, PS, and we certified 5,039. For 2023, we enrolled again 9,000. We're looking at the actual doc, 9,030, and we certified 5,141. So that would be our community training interventions, where we partner with a particular entity, provide them a subvention to defray certain costs, and help individuals in that way.
So you're actually having less CTIs, more enrollment. So what went wrong before? We're just, in a sense that you had over 150 CTIs. You're down to, you said, about
We have about
55,
80 or so.
80, 85.
Yes, yes.
But you are now enrolling more individuals and certifying more. So that means the system basically failed before.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that the system would have failed. We would have found that across different years, there would have been uptake in the trusts, in individuals' desires to get certified. Individuals may enter a particular program. Some of them will complete. Others of them may stop for varying reasons that we would have done the risk assessment to address those matters. Some of them would go on to higher education, etc. So I think
No, it's not a negative observation. No.
Okay. Okay.
You are, all I'm saying is that you have less CTIs.
And
you are
more
enrolling
output.
more.
And more output.
And you are certifying more.
And more
so I'm
output.
asking the question, why did we take so long to realize that we could rationalize it? Because we have had the discussion, as I said before,
Yes.
where there were CTIs basically just doing it as a business and not for the purpose of certification.
Yes.
So why did it take us so long to recognize that
We
after
have,
spending so much money?
Should be mindful of that. Mindful of what transpired in this committee with CMU and their training programs.
And that
Where
same institution
That,
too, in
yes,
Montego Bay.
many of these institutions were collecting millions of dollars through the Ministry of Education for training programs
And Heart Trust.
and our trust. And the people were not getting any certificates. Complete the programs. So it's like we're not learning from our own experiences.
and remember what we have done with the MOE in that regard for the CAP program that would have been cited in the AG's report. Before we send any money over to the MOE in any tranche, they have to provide us with a detailed report indicating what they have done, what is the certification rate, everything that has to be signed off on before our financial, our senior financial director issues any fund. So he issues against a signed report indicating the deliverables would have been met.
Would have
Otherwise,
been met before the payments are made.
right. Otherwise, he does not issue.
But MD, was managing director, or executive director, Madam in charge, right? I still want a clear thing about those bodies that my colleagues see. CTIs. The CTIs are not, what's the right word? They are not agents of heart.
No, no.
They are not agents of
No,
heart.
they are not. No.
Okay. Number two, the courses that they offer, the hard courses that they offer, you mentioned a bit of the support system that you said put in place to monitor them.
Yes.
For all of those, I think it's what, 80 you mentioned ago? 80 such?
About
you
80
have
to 85.
80 to 85 you have across the country.
Yes.
What would you say, what percentage of those would you say are satisfactory in the trust assessment?
I could say this confidently, Minister. I'm sorry,
No,
member.
no. That's once in
member.
another life.
I could say this confidently, member.
My
that
church members call me minister too of that.
Yes,
body.
yes.
Member, will you allow to answer the question?
Not all of the CTIs are created equal. Some of them are really, in terms of the infrastructure, really high level, and others of them are not really where we would want them to be. We could say confidently that about 80% of them are at the acceptable level.
80%?
80%, yes. The
But,
others...
But madam, how you allow 20% to be operating as agents of, agents of yours, unless they qualify in terms of infrastructure and whatever else that they need to have?
Yes, so so it's twofold, member, in that there is a demand for individuals to be supported, perhaps in a rural, highly remote area. We have to meet that demand as best as possible. So we provide the subvention for them to defray cost equipment as best as possible to get them to a standard. It may not be the standard of one that is at the higher end.
No.
But the goal is twofold.
No. You must have some minimum threshold to be met.
Yes, and we
by
do.
Everybody.
And we do.
So that 20% you shouldn't have 20% that is not. That's high.
So we have 80% that would be operating at above expectation.
And
we
20%
have 20%,
below.
We have 20% who need additional support.
No, that's euphemism. Them either meet this thing or them don't meet it.
No, but there is a standard, though, member, that they do meet in order for them to operate. But
so you're saying that 20%, do they meet the minimum standard of art, yes or no?
100% of the CTIs meet the minimum standard, 100%. Okay.
And your minimum standard you're comfortable with?
We are comfortable with it, but we also recognize that a trainee, certainly with more inputs, with more support, can get more.
No, man, fine.
Yes.
I just don't want, it was very uncomfortable to think that the heart of a premier certifying training entity of people getting certificates are being training entities that is below par.
No.
That is what was scary.
No.
I know. You're saying all of them are operating at this minimum satisfactory level for you. You're saying that categorically.
I am saying that confidently.
And if the Auditor General should audit those entities, it will concur with your confident statement.
It certainly will, and we certainly would not have the results we had prior.
No, man. Well, I won't get into that. I just want to stick with whether or not the data and the actual fact match up with that.
And they are aware that if we're not comfortable, we won't fund, because it is a partnership.
You say people who hustle for all kinds of things, as my colleague said, hustle. Sure. But you know, part of the struggle, part of the difficulty I have as an MP in my constituency, there are some programs that when young people come to my office to seek assistance, is a no-no.
Yes.
Right? And I can name some of them, like some of these nursing assistant programs. The only beneficiary, practical nurse. That is a scam. Because 90% of them who leave with the certificate can't go anywhere. But yet the people who run these programs make a whole lot of money.
Get away with it.
And these young people, quite frankly, because some of them waste time in high school, finish 5 years, don't have anything, then realize that they need something to get on in life. And they go to these places who are offering these, and they hear they're going to get a certificate at the end. A certificate that takes them nowhere. So we on the ground, we know what it is like. So that's why we don't want you get into the business with some of these people where issuing papers and then bear your name on it. Training entity of heart. Many of these people don't understand the nuances involved, And once they see heart name attached to it, even faintly written, they hug it up and believe that is a honorable, legitimate program that they are in. We have to safeguard against it. And in that regard, the question by my colleague about those people who you found to be fraudulent. They must be on the headline. Not just because you want to shame them, though that should be part of it. So that people know and don't fall prey to these people. Company S, under the name of this, operating fraudulently.
Just like they do delinquents, persons that don't pay their student loan.
Yes.
Same way.
You whose name is on the line, not your person, your institution's name and reputation is on the line. You have to act in a proactive way to protect the integrity and the reputation of heart.
Yes.
I'm a strong believer in heart. I'm an ambassador of heart. And that's why I will passionately try to protect it, because we can't damage our institutions.
And I'm going to protect you a little bit so that the member can.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
And thank you, my friend. So Heart as an institution, very strong, solid name out there. And I'm going to be a bit kinder, my colleague. When you have a mother, she had her children, life happens, and she decides she's going back to school, she's going to get that certificate. And for them to go to one of these little institutions that promise them a Heart certificate at the end of it, and they get the runaround for months, for years, having spent money to attend, it is heartrending. No pun intended. And I am encouraging Heart to go about having a public education. Let it be out there, big and bold. These are the approved institutions. Anything outside of this, do not sign up. Do not spend your money. And before you respond to my last question, I know that the issue with certification, Member Jackson, as MD has mentioned, it has been there for over what? 10 years. Yes. 10 years? Yes. Spanning administrations. Yes. And I'm happy now to see that with this new paradigm, right, you are embracing greater levels of accountability.
Yes. Yes.
I'm curious though, now that we are boasting, it's something to be proud of, free certification up to the associate degree level. Yes. In terms of output, in terms of execution, in terms of having the certificates available, in terms of capacity, talk to me about readiness.
Readiness. Okay, thank you so much for that readiness question. We are ready at the Trust, very ready. We would have, given the announcement of fees, we recognized immediately that we needed to increase capacity in terms of our instructors. So immediately we started the Teach for Heart initiative, which has, we would have identified individuals who were shadowing instructors. They were demonstrators within the various institutions, and we would have now enrolled them in a program within the Trust to build on their pedagogy so that they can be, so that whilst they have the technical competencies, those teaching pieces that you know very well, member, they are getting that opportunity to build on the pedagogy so that they can deliver. So we have increased the pool of instructors to the Teach for Heart initiative. We have been working with the Ministry of Education in terms of absorbing various community colleges would take on Heart students, and they would certify, they would train on our behalf with the direct supervision. We would have been approached by the CCCJ, the Community Colleges Association, that they would want to be able to take on any excess that we may not be able to manage, to put them in their programs where there are similar certification levels, so that no one is left behind. And so the Trust has been working very, very strategically on its capacity in terms of institutions, how much we can take, in terms of instructors, how many individuals are able to deliver. And even with our recruitment drives, we have now scheduled our programs in a systematic way, so individuals do not have to wait too long for a particular cohort, because quickly we fill up. So we'll have a quota, let's say for makeup artistry, of 100, and by the time we put out an ad, that's full. So we try to have more programs happening concurrently. So that's another model to ensure that whilst access is there, no one would have to be waiting for an inordinately long time before they can access our program. So quite a lot would have happened. We have also increased online delivery and other flexible learning modalities to support the thrust of access.
One final question. Dr. Ingleton, I have to bat for the rural spaces. How are we going to make better use of the facilities that we have? Could be our school, community center, could be a church hall. what are we going to do for the rural constituencies where access is a problem? A member of parliament for a rural seat, sometimes it's very difficult for a student to leave, or a prospective student to leave to go all the way into Kingston where that particular course may be offered. And then we have, Chairman, some courses that are in demand. For example, JAGAS. Almost every youth is interested in the German automotive school. How many do we have island-wide? I have land in my constituency. I can talk to people. It's hard ready to talk to me. I want us to do business in my constituency together. I'm very serious about this. So we have individuals, we have Linstead, Yorton, Loidersville, Guys Hill, Glengough, Bogwalk. It's a big community there. What about the youths who are interested in going to JAGAS? We have to talk, and especially for the females when it comes to makeup artistry, yes. The aesthetic field, we can also talk about that. I have land in my seat that I could consider using.
Thanks so much, member. Before we talk about the land, for where we have existing infrastructure, so we utilize the schools, we utilize the churches, we utilize the community training centers across the rural areas. We would have done a lot of work across the St. Thomas, St. Mary, Portland belt that is highly rural. We would have communicated with members of parliament within those constituencies to identify schools, community training centers that we can utilize to host the training. So we would have done a lot of that. We also have mobile training. So we have our vehicle fleet that we outfit that would go out there, and there are quite a number of them, Dr. Aston, that the names are eluding me, but we have 5 mobile labs that we drive into the communities and offer the training from that particular vehicle that we would have outfitted for the training. We have different partners that offer the automotive training. JAGAS is the one that you would know, but we have partnering entities in Junction, we have those in Port Maria, and we have in Petersfield. So if it is that, and Montego Bay, so if it is that you have a trainee perhaps in Linstead, we have Old Harbour as well. We'd identify the nearest one, and we do provide vehicular support for trainees to as best as possible in terms of going to a particular location, picking them up, busing them, taking them to a particular location and back. Once those needs come to us, once the regional director identifies the needs, we put a mechanism in place to address it. And we also customize programs. So where it is that we may not have one on our books and the need is there and they would have articulated what it is that they need, we pull the team together, customize, go through the necessary benchmarking and standards, and so offer. For the land, we do welcome land. We have a policy in place, Mr. Mullins, in terms of how we engage to ensure that we are in compliance with the regulations, but we do welcome land, and we'll put in the infrastructure, set up the different equipment that we need within that space to make training happen.
Mind you set up yourself, Dr. Ingleton.
Yes, but the regulations, we operate within the regulations. Yes.
When we think about Linstead, Riversdale, Yorton, Guys Hill, way back, Old Harbour is quite a way off.
But Dr. Ingleton, and I want to come back to a question I asked, just to dovetail on that. Because even though we're showing low unemployment rates, there's still a large percentage of Jamaicans who are actually not looking for a job.
That is true.
And looking at the numbers also, there are still employers who are saying they can't get persons of a certain skill set to employ within their organizations. And that's island-wide. Hence, we speak about having to not finding certain categories of workers. How is it that coming out of the surveys of skills in demand, how is it that Heart Trust is aligning their programs to those of that survey in ensuring that we can meet that demand in the shortest space of time.
Excellent question, Chairman, and I'm just going to ask our planner, our strategic planner, who has, she has the data sets and she has the strategic framework in terms of how we go about doing that. Mrs. Gittins, to respond to that for us quickly.
Okay, good afternoon, members. Yes, we do studies, and we also always provide the data to our training institutions. They use that data to do the training. Right now, for the past at least 5 years, at least 99% of our programs, 98 to 99% of our programs are aligned to labor market demand. And that is consistently.
Well, I mean, again, I'm going back to the Auditor General's report that spoke that HART implemented an average of 48% of new skills training recommended by that same survey.
Yes.
Right? And what are the areas that we are picking up the demand in really looking for employment, not what it is that individuals feel is necessary, that they want to be trained in. Come back to the point that Member Jackson spoke about, and as a member of parliament, I also dissuade them from doing the practical nursing.
Yes.
Because after they finish, they come back to our office looking for jobs. But then how it is that you direct that individual, that look, there's a demand for housekeeping, there's a demand for a welder, a plumber, and direct them into that.
Yes, that's exactly what we do. What we do is when we do the research, it is the demand-led research. So it is what the industry is requiring that we gather the data on. Once we have gathered the data, we indicate to the training system that these are the areas in which you should be training. As you can appreciate, demand and labor shortage is global. And there is the instance wherein we're training, but we may not be training in adequate numbers for the particular sector. So for example, if we train in construction, for example, all the areas in which we're training, maybe 100% of those areas are demanded by industry. However, industry may demand 500, but we're able to, in a particular year, train 300, for example. So there is a shortfall in terms of the number we're able to deliver to meet industry needs, and you always have to remember as well that migration is a challenge, and so we train them, and many of them take up jobs elsewhere. And so we do not have one-on-one correlation between the delivery or supply of labor and the demand for labor, but where labor is being supplied, there is 98 to 99% alignment as it relates to enrollment and certification every year.
Because you still have a large percentage of your labor force that's uncertified.
Absolutely.
And I know that you do on-site training for those.
Yeah. Yes.
But how is it? I mean, can we, or the HART Trust, when I said we, in collective, promote more of that?
Yes.
Vis-a-vis your other training apparatus that you have in place. Because if you still have 60% of your labor force, which is uncertified,
yes,
you know, how is it then from our side, meaning the parliament side,
yes,
can we help now to drive individuals in getting that? Because employers might be satisfied without them having the certification.
yes.
But is it that we make it a requirement?
We do offer prior learning assessment. So year to date, we have about 90,000 persons enrolled. And of that, about 14,000 is prior learning assessment. So it's not coming into our training institutions to go through a course for 9 years, for example. We go to you, and if you have already developed the competencies or the skills, we will assess and we will certify. We have been doing that. In fact, we have a program now with City and Guilds wherein we understand that not all our trainees are going to be equipped to do the written exams, because we understand how our trainees are and the constituents that we serve. And so we have a program in City and Guilds where we do oral exams. So we're finding all different methodologies of certifying them on the job, assuring, of course, that they're competent, and certifying them.
So let me ask you, let's use the LIFT program as an example. Yes. And I know that there's about 2 or 3 week, 6 week?
8
weeks.
weeks.
8-week training
weeks.
program. Is it that they get certified in a certain skill set before going on to the employment?
Employability skills. So we make,
Right.
okay.
No, I
Doc, you
was
wanna
just
take
saying
that
that
one?
Dr. McLaughlin, who is working intimately, will
With
respond to the lift. That's her program. Go ahead, Doc.
Go ahead,
Thank you
Doc.
so much, and good afternoon, everyone. So after 8 weeks, they would become certified in employability skills. That would take into consideration perhaps about 10 units, where they'll do digital literacy, ICT, conflict management, and some of those those soft skills that would prepare them for any job, any workplace. And when they get onto the job, then they will learn those specific technical skills relating to the
So that comes to my next question now. So if, for instance, someone is employed to Ministry of Finance and works in the procurement department, or some other department within a ministry or agency. After that 1 year of employment, because that is your commitment to them, do they then get certified in that skill set of what it is that they're working in? And the reason why I ask is because you're looking at what, 5,000 on an annual basis? 500, sorry. 500 on an annual basis. And this is, I'm sure it's going to be an ongoing. You certify them basically to the minimum, which is basically to be employable. But then after and if you look at your certification numbers, not that it is wrong to certify them in being able to be employable, but what skill set am I really certifying them at the end of the day, that when they leave that employ of that 1 year, that they're certified in a skill set of what they did for 1 year?
So we're working very closely with the receiving agencies to ensure that there's a workforce strategy in place, so that at the end of the year, we can determine the competencies developed, and they can receive an assessment. We'll see where the gaps are, and then after completing that 1 year, then we can fill the gaps, and then they can be certified.
And I will say it should be mandatory.
Yes.
Because we are, meaning government is guaranteeing employment at a rate that most not seeing in our society, with minimum skill set. And for me, the achievement out of this program is what certification that they get at the end of the day, and not that mere certificate to say that you are employable at just at a minimum level. Right. And I think if we're really going to achieve a program like this, because you have other programs that have the employment component to it, that this LIFT program is getting 3-4 times more. Right. And if you look at the minimum requirement that you asked, which is really 3 subjects, I can tell you that, and I'm sure that many other MPs found it hard to find those individuals to make up the 8 that we actually, that we actually wanted. Because I got 22 applications, and only 6 out of the 8 met the requirement. Yeah? So, at the end of the day, for me personally, I didn't want it to be something that we're looking at persons who did not achieve for whatever reason, giving them an employment, paying them $85,000 a month. That is above most of persons who even have a degree in some instances getting. And at the end of the 1 year program, they still don't have a certificate to say that they have achieved in that skill set that they have been working for.
I would love to have your problem, but I wasn't different. You give me hate and put me into trouble. because you give me 8, I got 8 from your officers in Portmore. And then you put online, you put on your site that people can apply online. And then the whole of them come because somehow people think that I'm the MP for all of Portmore. So everybody come and almost overrun my office. They download the forms and take it to my office. And my assistant here can't do anything because your officer says only 8 I can submit. So you have an expectation level up here,
Yes.
and you only have 8. So I wish I could have your problem. Because I have the people with
I had a similar problem because of the online.
Yes, that
they were
was,
told,
to be honest with you, managing director, that was kind of cruel. You know, you put me under pressure. We spoke to your local officers and tell them don't bring it come to the office. Because when them come to us now, and then your officers tell them must carry it to the MP. So when the MP don't take them, it's like we are the wicked ones. I would say Hart was the wicked one in this case, because you set me up, right? So that I want to take off my chest.
But one of the options that was given to, which I commend the Mandeville office, is those persons who came in but did not meet the threshold, that we found another program to put them in.
Right, that
So
is
that
across.
was- yes.
It's across the trust.
Yeah,
So
that is what we did.
What I might think, Chairman, this thing had required some more planning before you jump out the gate. It was pre-cooked. For the officer tell me like it's a plane you're building while flying. I'm not going on that plane. Build it first before we go up and up because it don't crash with me. Right? So I don't accept that. The other thing with the lift program I had a difficulty with. You set in there a number of things that the students will get. For example, a driver's license. Okay? The driver's license, through the Road Traffic Act that we passed in this house, 2 people can learn to drive one of 2 ways. A family member who is not required to be certified, or a driving school. Yes. A driving school has to be certified to teach people to drive. I don't know if up to now the Ministry of Transport work out, it's not certification of those driver education places to teach people to drive in a legal way. So you have one in the side of government saying this is what you're required to do, and the other side is not facilitating or enabling the delivery of those trainers to be able to train people to drive. That's one element of that with the driver's license thing. The other element of it, which your program never set out clearly, you have to get a learner's permit first, which they have to take a test, etc. And there's a fee involved in obtaining that driving permit. What was never clear, who is going to pay that fee? Is it the unemployed person who is now coming into the program, right? Or is it because they're going to earn down the road? Or is it that you are going to subsume the cost of, one, the training from, say, you have a certified learner driver organization, who is going to pay that fee? Who is going to pay the fee to the tax office for the learner driver fee? Who is going to pay the fee for the driver's license? Because you might pass the test, but not until the driver's license is issued up and paying the fee, you become a licensed driver. It only said that you would have passed the test with the island traffic, with the depot people, that entity. Who is going to pay those costs? Your officers could not answer me those questions when I posed it, because if you announce a program and people, when they come to my office, they require answers. They don't wish to come and then be more confused because they hear a good sounding advertisement on the television or in the paper. Your officers could never answer those questions because you guys never sought that out yet.
No, we did. We actually did. So it's unfortunate that those particular officers were not able to respond. But the lift participants pay nothing. So the passport cost is paid for by the entity and the partnering entity, which we have. There are two entities involved, HEART and MOE. The driver's license is also taken care of. Their TRN, I don't know that
there's no fee involved.
There's no fee involved, but everything that would involve a fee,
no,
we
I'm
absorb
relieved.
everything. So their $85,000 is 100% theirs. We do not ask them to pay for anything.
I am relieved. Yes. I had the meeting with the officers myself, you know. I never delegate that to my constituency. I sit with them so that I could be informed myself and that my office could be sufficiently educated so that they can inform the persons when they apply. So I'm relieved of that. All associated
costs are covered.
Is borne by fine.
Yes,
Welcome
by both
that.
entities. Yes.
Thank you. My final comments, Chair. Chair, I couldn't help but observe when you mentioned that with the LIFT program in your own constituency, you had a challenge, you know, finding constituents who had 3 or more subjects. In my case, the challenge was finding constituents who had mathematics. And we are probably going into not uncharted waters, but controversial nevertheless, where we have to now think about alternative forms of learning, alternative forms of education. Does it mean that if an individual does not have 5 or more subjects, you know, how they are, it compromises them in pursuing their life chances, because we learn at different levels and there are different types of learners.
That is right,
and
yes.
not because you have individuals who may not be able to boast their 5 or 8 CXCs, it doesn't mean that these persons are not brilliant people, especially when it comes to the skilled areas. Sometimes they are, very often when we see our mechanics, our aestheticians, right, their work and the mastery of it is nothing short of genius, nothing short. And I want to pick up on something Ms. Glittens mentioned regarding the oral examinations, right? Could you provide clarity? In especially deep rural constituencies where we struggle with issues, and one such one is high levels of illiteracy, which may be one of the reasons we don't find more individuals coming forward to show interest in skills training, because, you know, in their community, they are probably thinking, boy, I have a little challenge with the reading and the writing, so I'm not gonna get through with that. Could HEART reiterate its position on certifying individuals with literacy challenges? And if at all this is in place, could you make a commitment to making this more widely known? Thank you.
I will allow Mrs. Gittens to speak to the oral exams as you asked, but I'm going to preface that with some comments that you would have made prior in terms of the math. We would have recognized that we asked for the CXC, and we were flexible in our approaches when we recognized that not all of them had the CXC. We accepted the city and guilds. We did, yes, so we accepted it.
But even that was a difficulty because you accepted at a certain level. So
yes,
even that was a difficulty,
3,
and
yes.
it came back to the math. That was
Yes.
a challenge.
The trust also, we engage in the high school diploma equivalency program. That's the HSDE, and that's a legacy program coming from the JFLL following the merger. So where there are individuals who would not have met the standards at the CXC level or otherwise grade 9 level, some of them are even at lower levels than grade 9, we take them through the high school diploma equivalency program to get them up to that acceptable standard. And I think that is one of the programs that is not so much publicized, but really, really doing well in the organization to help individuals who may not be at that level of literacy acceptable. We also recognize, member, that what you have said is indeed correct, where individuals will come in without basic qualifications that we would refer to as the most acceptable standard, and they shine through the program. And so we offer them the training alongside them getting those subjects. And so quite a number of them would have excelled in that regard. So I will allow Mrs. Gittins to speak about that oral examination aspect that she would have mentioned earlier.
The particular program is the skills proficiency that is delivered by City and Guilds. Right now we have that program for construction and hospitality. We have it right across Jamaica. All the parishes can be accessed, mainly for construction workers in a range of areas in construction. They go to the site, to them, so they have to demonstrate the competence. So it's on the job, it is full demonstration. For the culinary persons, some of them are working in hotels, some of them are entrepreneurs. You know, you have a lot of persons who are in cook shops, for example, but they're not yet certified. They certify them in that area each year. We have been doing this for about 3 years now, and we're exploring to see how we can expand as an organization and to assess what other skill areas City and Guilds may be able to partner with us as a trust in offering these areas.
Member Whittle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Member Jackson spoke about the recalibration of the program in terms of, he mentioned that the program was kind of rushy, if I might use that word, and the challenges that we face as members of parliament. My challenge that I had in my constituency was similar to the chairman's. I found it very difficult to find those 8 persons. What happened is that the issue that was really pronounced in terms of identifying those 8 students was the issue of the math and English. And those persons who would have passed math and English, it is highly likely that they would have gone with maybe 5 or 6 other subjects. Because once you pass math and English, and it's highly likely that you will pass the other subjects. That's how it works when you look at the examination result. And therefore, those students, a lot of them would have gone on to tertiary institution or 6th form. So that also would impact you getting the numbers. That was part of the challenge that I faced in my constituency.
Yes, and it was a challenge faced by a lot of MPs.
Did you get the required amount that you needed from MPs?
Yes, we did, and I have the data sets right here across the projection as well as the actual enrollment. So we would have 1 or 2 constituency who they would submit 8, they got 7. Some would have submitted 6, they got 5. And another constituency would have submitted 9, and all would be qualified based on the shortfall of 1. Right. And so the total... you said that you want to know who would have been oversupplied?
No, but member, and again, that's why I said data, Dr. Ingleton, because even though you got the amount, and it would be interesting to look at the, without showing up any constituency or individual, but if there's a shortfall, it would be good to know why that shortfall, and I guess it's because of the similar challenge of finding individuals, right? But you made it up somewhere else, so okay. But if you are just giving the 8 per constituency, then you'd have had a shortfall without making it up on the other side, giving some constituencies more than other. And it comes right back down to your educational system. And I am going to join my member Morrison, because a lot of these individuals, I have individuals in my constituency that you see them teach themselves music by just going to church. You see them teach themselves phone repair without having any formal training, a computer. Yeah? So you have individuals that might not have the subject that is required to send them on to tertiary, but they are very good with their hands, right? So that is why I'm saying that even these that we have, this 500, at the end of the day, what certification outside of just being job ready that we leave them with after 1 year, that if the employer is not able to keep them beyond the year that you are paying them for, being able to find a job elsewhere with a certificate to say that I have done 1 year working at Heart Trust in even filing or data entry, that they leave with that certificate. I think that is how I would rate if we really have achieved, than just to say that I've employed them for 1 year.
And we are going to do that. We have taken that recommendation immediately. We are going to ensure that that happens. And we would have started that mechanism prior. We met with all of the receiving entities last week and all of the MDAs, the private sector entities, and we communicated with them what our expectations are, how we're going to be monitoring and evaluating the trainees as they go through, what the requirements are in terms of what we expect them to give, and so that certification is part of the process.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have two last questions because we have to wrap up now. This is to you, PS. Machado building. 2013, that building was purchased. $53 million coming from Hart. We're in 2023 now. What's the status of that building?
That is one that is really a very interesting exercise. I have found that we don't implement as effectively as we should, but we are looking now to see how we can repurpose that building within the OPM. There's another activity that is interested in utilizing that building. The discussions are underway with Hart, and I would want to see that advance a bit more, Chairman, before we speak definitively on that. But I accept that it has been underutilized for a long time.
Underutilized?
Not utilized.
Not utilized.
Not utilized.
No, and the reason why I asked the question, you know, because you're spending millions on an annual basis providing security, just the property taxes, the various different components to just have it sitting down there empty.
Yes.
But it has been a very long time. A second building that is in a similar is the old Jamaica building that the Ministry of Transport, I think it was, that purchased that building, but it has just been sitting down there having pigeons and rat bats inside there. You know, so...
Agreed, Chair. And as I can't comment on Jamaica, but as I said, we are very advanced in discussions with respect to the
So Hart will
building.
not be using the building?
Not according to the discussions we're having now. We're looking to have another entity under the auspices of the OPM utilize the building, and that discussion is well advanced.
So that $54 million that Hart had expended, will that be recouped?
As I said, we are advanced in discussions about how that will be rationalized, Chairman.
But, Chairman, if I may, you can assist me. If my recollection is correct, Hart purchased that building as part of a redevelopment plan.
With Ministry of Education.
With Ministry of Education. So it was part of a redevelopment plan for that area.
Redevelopment and to outfit it as a skills training center for Hart.
So it was purchased within the context of a plan. So my first question, is that plan still intact? Has that plan been modified? Has that plan been scrapped? Right? That is my first other question. You know the answers to the plan within which it was bought into?
Sorry, I thought you said you had another.
No, man, I want to go on because
and why has it taken us so long to decide?
Yeah, I have a follow-up question, but it's contingent on what the answer is.
Yes, MD, can you comment on the plan?
Thanks so much, PS and members. It wasn't the MO, is the OEC. So the Machado complex is co-owned by Hart and the Overseas Commission.
Okay, thanks for that correction.
Overseas Examinations Commission, the OEC. So there's a co-ownership. So yes, indeed, when it was, and that would have predated both myself and the PS many years ago, there was indeed a plan in place, an architectural plan developed in terms of how the building would be repurposed to accommodate both the OEC and the Hart NSTA
That
Trust.
co-ownership, it's $50-something million of
50. The building itself cost 104 million.
and that was your portion of it.
Yes.
The 53
No, 53 million was yours.
Is Hart's contribution or buy-in to that program. Is Hart averse to selling its stake in it?
Well, through you, Chairman, that's what I'm saying. We are very advanced in discussions now to repurpose the building. I didn't want to say too much on it because the discussions are taking place, but the intention is to utilize the building in short order. The details of how the accounting for the expenditure will take place is a part of the discussions we're having now.
No, but
planning to repurpose it, etc. As I said at the beginning, the acquisition was done within the context of a plan.
Which Hart was involved
in. Hence, I was sort of insisting on the question of whether or not the plan has either been modified or whether it is alive, whether it's dead, right? Because the answer to those questions will determine what options you can pursue. If those plans no longer exist, then it's just a real estate sitting there, and you have to assess the best use of your value in it, your asset, your money investment in it. So the question still stands, PS. Is there a plan still in place?
And I don't have that information. This is what I would say we have to look into that. I know that we at the Central OPM have been aware of the non-utilization of the building, and we are targeting the building for another purpose under the auspices of the OPM. I can get the information as to what exactly happened with the plan from over 10 years ago.
Well,
I did not come armed with that information.
Let me ask the question this way then, Ambassador. Before your elevation to permanent secretary, were you not on the board of Hart? Then, while being a board member, wouldn't this come up as a going concern, looking at the overall development plan that was in place prior to you being on the board? But as we speak about join up government, it has taken us this long to basically decide, because what would be interesting is the amount of monies that have been expended up to this point, not only securing the property there, but what would have been expended, redrawings and plans and consultants in getting it to a point that it should have been used. I am sure that we'll be startled at that number, because I am seeing where just in 2020, if I'm to go by the Auditor General report, a total amount of $34 million was spent in that year alone just to maintain the building. And we're talking about 10 years of an asset sitting down. Right? And that's why I asked the question in the other way. As a member of that board, did it really come up as a going concern?
Thank you, Chair. And I'm happy you made reference to that. So I would have left the board of Hart about 8 years ago. And at the time I was on the board, that discussion was very alive and active, and there were great plans. I would have had the benefit of touring the facility and looking at all the potential.
Happy to hear.
I can say that having left the board, I did not keep in touch with the deliberations that would have taken place to this point, and I did not come prepared to answer that. But I am aware that there's another entity within the OPM that has taken an interest in the facility, and those discussions are at a very early stage. So I can give an update.
Please do. We'd love to get an update on it. And at the same time, while giving the update, Dr. Ingleton, if we could see over the period what has been spent yet so far in just having that asset sitting there. My last question to you, Dr. Ingleton, the 5 individuals that you have on special leave, what's the status with that, with that case in itself, and how are we moving forward in that matter?
Okay, thanks for that. So, as you are aware, Chairman, the matter is under investigation, so I wouldn't really want to prejudice the case with giving details, and my first duty is to ensure that I protect the dignity of the individuals who are on leave, and so it is in process in terms of an investigative process, and until that is completed, certainly when that is completed, I'll be happy to provide.
Internal or external investigation?
It would be internal investigation, but the same rules apply in terms of not communicating such as to prejudice.
But haven't individuals received letters from the Heart Trust in what the findings of those investigations have been?
So all of that would be part of the investigative process.
I asked a question, a particular question. Have those individuals received letters from Heart in the findings of the investigation having to do with each individual?
Certainly, the receipt of letters in terms of the investigation is part of the investigative process. And so that part of the process would have been concluded.
No, Madam MD, I'm a bit not so clear. You have 5 persons where you have issues. Yes, internally there are issues. You carry out an investigation, or you're carrying out an investigation in order to come to a conclusion. The investigation is not an academic exercise in and of itself. It's a means to an end. That you do the investigation, and what the investigation reveals, then it causes you to make a decision. If you have done an investigation and reached to the point that you can convey findings of the investigation, of course, natural justice requires some due process where allegations would have come up in the investigation and the persons involved would have to be given an opportunity to respond to those findings within coming out of the investigation, and thereafter the organization makes a decision. So 1, you have completed the investigations. 2, you have communicated the findings of the investigation to the parties involved. And 3, I presume you would have availed to them the opportunity to respond to the findings of those, some sort of quasi-appeal window for those persons. That appeal window would have a finite period to it. 1 week, 2 weeks, 10 days, 30 days, whatever the period is. So it's use an outside time of say 30 days within which to respond, to cause you now to make a final ruling, making giving consideration to what the responses were, to make a decision. So in further to the chairman's question, you ought to be in a position to say, based upon, we're not talking about the outcome, I'm talking about the process.
Yes.
You ought to be in a position to say, having gotten to this stage of completing the investigation, giving the persons the requisite time for response, etc., and for them to, not only to say I intend to respond, but to provide a response, to enable you as an institution to make a final decision. Because this process can't be indefinite.
And that is correct.
No, well, what I expect to say to that question, the investigation is in train, it has reached such and such a stage, no comment on the content of it to that point. The ART intends to conclude the process by such and such a time. so that both the parties involved, the parliament and the people, knows exactly that where you are towards an end. The answer you give is an infinite exercise, but you never give any finite projections to it.
Okay. Thank you,
Go ahead.
Chairman. You have outlined some aspects of the process, and indeed, we have been following all the aspects of the process to the T. There's a clear process, and we have ensured that we do everything right to ensure that there's absolutely no breach. And so all that you would have outlined, we would have reached the stage where the individuals were indeed issued letters and were given a timeline to respond. And of course, following the expiration of that timeline, then there would be a hearing, which is part of the process. And that is where we are at this time.
So how long have these individuals been on special leave?
They would have been on leave for 9 months. And
9 months?
No. There's the internal disciplinary policy speaks to a timeline. They are not outside of the timeline. They have not. The 9 months have not been expired. They are within the 9 months per the disciplinary policy. And if it is that there is need for more time based on the process of the disciplinary, based on the disciplinary process, then that would be firmly communicated within the regulations, and they would be so informed.
Chairman, justice delay is justice denied. 9 months for an internal investigation, decision-making, is awfully long.
Member, what I would say is the 9 months for which the individuals would have been out, there has been no delay or lag in the process. The process has followed its order.
The process need review then.
From the moment the individuals would have exited the organization based on what was identified, we have followed the steps all the way. Every single time.
When do you expect this to
there has been absolutely no breach on the part of the trust.
When do you expect this to conclude?
It would really be premature of me to indicate same, because as there are findings, as individuals are given an opportunity to respond, you will have to wait for them to respond, as they would call in their own counsel, and their own counsel would ask for time for them to respond.
Yeah, why I asked the question, you said within the regulations of the Heart Trust that there's a time frame for incidents like these, right? What is that time frame? So you're working first within the time frame that is within your own regulations.
Within the confines,
and
yes.
what are those time frames?
The time frame for that is 9 months. So it is we are within the policy of the organization.
So
yes.
you're no exceeding 9 months.
We have not exceeded the 9 months.
I asked you how long it is that they
before
have
we
been on
exceed
special
9
leave.
months? Okay.
No, I asked you the question, how long have they been on special leave?
You
said 9 months.
They are, okay. So they would have been on special leave since February.
Since February of this year. And that is to expire October 30th. We are not yet there. So at the end of this month.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but it took a long journey to get there. You know, how long the process now. That's why the chairman felt that they were on leave for 9 months. And the process take 9 months, that it would have finished. But I'm clear now.
Yes. So we are ensuring that we are within the confines and following every step so that the individual's their dignity would be protected. That is important to us.
Chairman,
yes.
if I could add a comment
Sure.
to that, just for clarity. So what the MD is speaking to are the internal provisions with respect to the normal time that someone would be on special leave during a disciplinary process. It does not mean that if the process is not complete, and with the guidance of their board, they could be in a situation where the persons are return to the employment environment, even if the disciplinary process is not complete. I just want to be clear that the window that the MD spoke to doesn't mean she's guaranteeing that the disciplinary process will indeed be complete within the 9 months.
I'm not taking from the MD that it will be, because
Right.
if she,
Yes.
as she stated, that the letters have been given on
Right.
the findings,
And they
but
have
then
to
there's
give
the
an
other
opportunity
side
to
of the process
Yes.
too. Hence why I asked, is there a time frame for this to be, for this process to at least be completed? Because if your regulation said 9 months, you're going beyond the 9 months now, I would expect, because it's not one or two individuals. Eh?
Chairman, the clarification I wanted to offer is that there's a distinction between the period that is normally allowed for persons to be on leave for a particular purpose versus the completion of the process, and the fact that the members who are being investigated may consult with their counsel, they may take time to respond, etc., and they have to be given an opportunity for the due process to follow. What the MD will have to take to the board at a certain point is if the time for which they would normally be on special leave is about to expire and the process is not complete, the MD would have to go to the board to make a recommendation in terms of how to treat with the fact that the disciplinary process is not yet complete. This is just what I want to make clear.
And why I raise it, because it also was in the public
Yes, of course.
review, and my understanding that these individuals also have given years of service
Absolutely.
to the Heart Trust. So we just, from where I sit is to ensure that due process is given to Heart itself, but to the individuals themselves.
Yeah, it's just for the due process. Yes. And some finality. You know, indefinite thing can be very, you know, the Pratt and Morgan case before the external court is on the basis just have them here languishing for a long time without making a decision. That can be more punishment than anything else. You know.
Remember?
Yes, Chair, just to comment that it's interesting that you raised your concern to PS regarding the property, procuring, the cost to government. And I just want to draw the parallel with Heart sometimes, like finding suitable locations for training, etc. Because it is interesting that there exists in this country poor use of the resources that we have. And I want to make mention of stadiums, for example. You would know that, Chair. I was going to go there. Like you'd have stadium, you know, in Jamaica you have, I could probably cite two, but I won't. Underused. Underused. I could go to community centers, many of them shut down. People telling you, oh, MP, we need to build a community center. But when you look, you have 2 or 3 within the area closed. It's cow, donkey, goat tying there, you know, they're breaking it, they, you know, vandalism, they take out everything, the toilets are broken down. So I think pretty much like what happens in first world countries, that we need to make better use of public spaces, one, and that there be no gray area when it concerns who is responsible to maintain them. Because if we had even many of our community centers at a state where, you know, habitable or fit for purpose, we could have a number of these programs ongoing in these rural communities. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much for that input. Dr. Ingleton, Ambassador, team, let me thank you. I think this was a worthwhile conversation to have where skills training is concerned. And as I remind you last week, we're not only here to delve down in numbers and sometimes disagree or agree to disagree and agree sometimes, but it is how from where we sit and where we are the ones that are in contact with individuals out there. Because I've had Heart come to do a registration process in communities, and at the end of a 6-hour day, probably only 2 individuals sign up. Yeah? So at the flip side, you're trying to provide certification. On the other side, there are individuals who really not really interested. What they want is the work, but not the training or the certification. And that's why we emphasized, or we spoke about even the LIFT and the other programs that create employment for individuals. What is it that they get at the end of the day while creating that employment, which is state funds, because it's 3% of employees' contribution that goes to the Heart Trust. So it's not a matter of resources, but what it is that the rate of return of investment from those resources is what our concern is. All right? So I want to thank you again for coming again back this week, and the dialogue continues.
Chairman, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I just looked down and I had sought the mic earlier to clarify a point, which I think it's useful for the record. You may recall that Member Jackson had sought clarification on whether the community training institutions all meet the minimum standards, and the MD had assured him accordingly. I just want to add a clarification that for a community training institution to be approved to deliver training, they must meet minimum standards. But there's an ongoing process of monitoring, as you can imagine, to ensure that the standards are maintained. And we're not saying that you may not, as we do sometimes, may come across an institution that has fallen off the standards and either have to be brought back up to speed or removed accordingly. But in order to just be approved in the first place, they must meet those standards. But there has to be a continued process of monitoring to make sure they maintain those standards. I just wanted to add that clarification. Thanks again.
And again, why our concern is that we have seen in the past coming out of reports of institutions themselves collecting that subsidy but not delivering what they ought to deliver. Hence the question.
Indeed, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, members.
Thank you.
And to the members of the committee that came to the meeting today. Thank you very much. Thank you, team. Have a good afternoon.
All right. Thank you.
Welcome. Members, are there any other business? No other business. The next meeting of the committee next week is November 1st. And we originally had Ministry of Labor, which was slated for today. And we will just shift them to the next meeting. So date of the next meeting would be Wednesday, November 1st. Isn't it the 25th? Wednesday the 25th. Wednesday, November 25th at 10 a.m., where we will invite Ministry of Labor. Thank you, members. This meeting is adjourned. Sorry, members. Actually, the meeting is October 25th. Sorry. My apologies.
It's Wednesday, October 18. In the headlines, an update on the country's education transformation. In business news, EU launches support to Digital Jamaica initiative. Regionally, Barbados